Welcome back to another episode of the Consistency Corner podcast. I'm so pumped today to welcome our guest, Holly Haynes, who, if you've been inside the Consistency Corner community for a minute, you probably already know that Holly is a mentor and friend of mine. And I have actually worked with her for 5 years. It's
5
so
years.
crazy to look
It
back
is
at
crazy.
that. But we have worked together from the time that I started my business in her mastermind to all the way since I've evolved my business into an agency and launching the corner office last year. And it's so fun because the signature pieces that she has taught around launching and messaging, I use today in my business and I use with my clients. So I'm really excited to talk through some of these methods and her thoughts and strategies. So, Holly, thank you so much for being here. For those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, so my name is Holly Haynes. I started this business in 2020, which is wild to me that we are now in 2026. Like, it's wild how fast it has gone, but also how it feels like yesterday. I like to joke that I got a late start in entrepreneurship because my background is mainly corporate strategy. So I worked 22 plus years in corporate strategy, and I had this like little idea that like, oh, wouldn't it be fun instead of helping like old men, I'll just say it that way, in corporate, which is what I was doing, I could help female business owners like actually make an impact and create a schedule that feels really good for them and their family. And so I started our podcast, Crush the Rush, in 2020. And it was a time where, because of the pandemic, which by the way, I didn't know was coming, people really leaned into podcasting and it really sort of catapulted the product suite that we have now. And we've got different programs and different levels of how we really help you scale. I call a life first CEO model, really helping you figure out like, what do you want your schedule to look like? For me, it was I wanted to put my girls on the bus and pick them up. And then it changed to, okay, well, that's cool. Now, how great would it be if we could travel once a quarter as a family? And so you'll hear me like give a lot of examples that maybe aren't business and more life focused, because that's how I want you to build your business so that you can celebrate those little wins along the way.
Yeah, because we're doing this, most of us, for freedom. And
Yeah.
so when we talk about freedom and we think about that, one of the things that I think immediately comes to mind for business owners is being chained to their phone and the social media algorithm. So
Yeah.
you have a different way of looking at it and actually started the antisocial method. So how did antisocial school come about?
Well, the fun fact about Antisocial School is the program itself, I actually thought of on a plane ride on the way back from Europe, which was the example I gave in my introduction of I had this idea of like, wouldn't it be great if we could step away from business and life and go on a vacation every quarter? But what Antisocial School means to me, and I think those of you listening, is wouldn't it be great if you could grow and scale your business and let's face it, let's turn leads into sales without having to rely on social media. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. You'll see that I am on social media. At the time of this recording, I'm kind of on a break. Like, and I will take really long breaks. Sometimes I'll just do stories. Sometimes I'll post. Sometimes I won't post. But for us, Instagram specifically is a plan B. So the plan A is email marketing. It's a client attraction strategy like SEO, like podcasting, like speaking that brings leads in. And then we use social as a tool. If you want, it could be optional to build that relationship. And so most of our social content is repurposed from our podcast. I have clients who don't use social at all. Like I said, sometimes I go on breaks, but it feels really good to have a very healthy relationship with social media. And I also say that because I have twin daughters who are 12 and social media is a big deal at this age. Excuse me. And so I want to make sure that I'm setting an example of how I'm using it and how I want them to consume it. And so it just felt really aligned of like, wouldn't it be cool if we could teach other ways to grow? And if you want to use social, great. And if you don't have to.
Yeah, because I think so many of us are on the apps, we're on the platforms, we're scrolling, we're scrolling, we're scrolling, and you start to believe that this is the only way, that I'm
Yeah.
not going to be successful if I'm not here 24/7. And then we end up pouring all this energy into figuring out hashtags and editing reels and trending audios. And it's just like so much. And most people didn't start their business to be content creators.
Yeah, and I think, social was designed for a quick win. So if you're really busy and you're like, "Oh, if I just get this post out there," and then you get it out there and you feel like you accomplished something, like, yes, that is way easier than designing a 10-step funnel, which is part of our antisocial method. And so a lot of times I'll say, like, the method is we have to sort of slow down to speed up and really think about, like, what's the ideal journey that we want to take our future clients on? Like, how are they getting to know you? Where are they finding you? And then what happens when they do? And we have to build that. And that takes a minute. And so I think it's a little bit different than what you might see on social, where it's like, if you just post 5 times a day or whatever the algorithm is saying, like, that's a quick win. You're going to feel good when you get it done. But I always say, like, where are your sales coming from? So it's like the number one question I ask my clients. But when you make a sale, look at the path of how they found you. Who did they find you from? Where did they find you? How did they convert? And usually it'll leave clues. And I would say most of the time it's probably not from social. They might have used social to get to know you, but
Hmm.
the initiation was probably not.
Right. So for you, a lot of the visibility strategy, I know it's in podcast guesting, networking, and community. And those are things that you teach inside of antisocial school, along with SEO and other strategies. But why is it that prioritizing aligned visibility over like burnout inducing content strategy
Yeah.
was so important for you? And why do you think that resonates with your clients?
For me, I think it was a necessity because when I was working full time and trying to grow my business, I was working for the C-suite and I couldn't really share on social. I mean, I could like
Hmm.
every once in a while. It's not like they were stalking my account, but like I had to find a different way to grow like off the bat. So I feel like that's the path that led me to where I am. But I also had very limited time, and I don't know about you, but I think all of us could, like, nod their head and be like, "That reel took me 10 times longer than I thought it would." I mean, I don't know how many times I say that. I'm like, "Why? Why do I do this?" And so because I was working full time, and then even when I left my job, like, I have young kids, I still didn't have a ton of time, and so I was like, "If I can grow my list and turn leads into sales and it only takes me an hour a day or 2 hours a week, like, why would you not choose that?" And so I
Yeah.
kinda had to, like, convince myself because it's not what you see, and it's not, like, fun work, right? Like, it's fixing your SEO and researching keywords. I mean, I think it's fun, but most people will be like, "Okay, great." Or, like, strategizing a funnel or, like, how to follow up with people or, "Okay, I'm gonna write, 5 pitches this week." Like, it's probably my friend Katie calls it the eat the frog task. Like, it's probably the thing that you don't wanna do, where making
Hmm.
a reel or a carousel post, like, sometimes feels easier.
Hmm.
And so for me, it was out of necessity, but I think it appeals to people because I do think that there are some businesses that are completely off social, which is fine. But if you want to be on social, I'd like to think that it's a healthier relationship because your revenue is not dependent on how many times you post.
Yeah, and I think what you said about social being a quick win for people and these like eat the frog type tasks
Yeah.
that take a little bit longer up front, I think that's a really important reframe. And in the world of marketers, I always say like marketers are really good at selling you marketing. So what no matter what type of marketing it is, they want you to believe that it's the quick fix, it's the easy
Mhm.
button. There is no easy button. There is
Right.
no quick fix.
Yeah.
And so when we sit down with clients to map out their customer journey, we want to look at like, okay, how long does this strategy take and how much time from you does it take? Because
Mhm.
that's the balance is like,
Yeah,
what's your
exactly.
capacity? How fast do you want to get to your goals? And what can you do sustainably? Because a lot of people, I think, can post on social consistently for a while,
Mhm.
but then it starts to become something that, like, we're resentful of and we're burnt out, and so
Yeah.
I think you're right, like, designing it a little bit differently with things that you can spend an hour a week on or a half an hour a day that builds over time is so much more sustainable.
Yeah, and I also think having a strategy, if you do post on social, behind what you post. So, why are you
Mhm.
posting it? Where is it going? When people read it or watch it, like, what's your intention? And that ties back to like your bigger strategy, which we work on behind the scenes of like, okay, once they see your post, like, how are you nurturing them? And then there's like some power in sharing it on social if that's the path that you choose.
Yeah, for sure. So you teach antisocial in antisocial school, you teach a lot around messaging, around visibility. But let's talk about the other side of the coin and kind of what you
Yeah.
said about where you're sending people, what you want them to do. And you and I are both obsessed with calendars and planning things out. Like we love the big whiteboard calendar and put the dates and the spreadsheets and all of that. But talk to me about launch planning and how deciding to skip Black Friday influence your suite and your launch planning?
Yeah, this is I don't think anyone's asked me this question before. So I did Black Friday one time because I mean everyone, I think as a business owner, everyone gets intrigued. And I still do, even though I know I'm not gonna do it. I'm like, oh, like Sally's doing this. This is such a great idea. Am I gonna miss out? And I just remember I was working full time and I designed a brand new offer and I had all the things mapped out. And I think I sold like one course or something. It was like $200. But I was tied to my computer for all the wrong reasons over a holiday weekend, and I was like, "This is just not worth it." Also, I'm not the type of person that can set it and forget it because I know a lot of businesses will be like, "Oh, we just scheduled the sale and we'll see what happens." You can do that, great. I cannot. Like, I wanna know the data, I wanna know what's happening, I wanna, like, maximize the time, and so I was like, "You know what? Like, we're not gonna do it. If I follow the method that I teach, like what's important to me, like spending time with family, being off for the weekend. So like scheduling a sale with 800,000 other business owners at the same time does not feel aligned. But I'm a huge believer in launching, picking dates for launching that align with your schedule and like you don't have to do Black Friday, but create your own holiday. And that was even more fun. So I sort of just I did it out of, oh my God, I'm not living through this again. Like I'm done. I have to remind myself every year. But then I was like, okay, well, how can we take the momentum of a holiday and like make it your own?
Yeah, the FOMO is so real around
It's
Black
so
Friday. I
real.
mean, I experience it too, and as somebody who was in retail for several years, was like, "I'm never doing that ever again." But then, yeah, you get the itch, and you start to see what
Yeah.
other people are sprinkling out there, or you see people even admitting, "Okay, I wasn't gonna do it, but I have FOMO, so now I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a promo," and then you're like, "Well, maybe I should too." But when
Yeah.
it comes to your promos, whether they're at Black Friday or they're in a completely made up holiday in the middle of the summer, walk me through your kind of annual calendar planning around launches and like
Yeah.
why launches even matter.
Yeah, ironically, we just started talking about this morning, like so much so that I have a blank calendar on my desk in front of me. So that's what I start with. Like I start with a blank calendar. And then I will go through and mark out like big things that we want to do as a family or like things that I know are like off limit. So like when we want to take vacations or when the girls are out of school. I don't want to wake up one day and like forget that they don't have school because that's happened before. When summer break, when like most of ours is around school, but like really big things that are going on. This year, as an example, is my husband and I's 20th wedding anniversary. And so I knew that June we were going to take a vacation and it was going to be significant. I know that we're going to go do something in March. And so I just start blocking it out. Like, and to me, that's the fun part. Like, we're not even talking about business. Then I go back and I look at what we did last year. So I call it a look back analysis, but at the beginning of the year, I'll do it for the whole year. And I'll be like, what did we do last January? What did we do last February? What did we do last March? What worked? What didn't work? As an example, we had a sale at the beginning of January last year and it did okay. But in my notes, I wrote, don't do a sale again in January because people are on, I think I put like a budget diet or something because it's like right after Christmas and they're like, oh, I don't want to spend, anyways. So you just look at like all your data and then I just very like loosely think about, okay, well, what's my goal for Q1? I don't try to do the whole year at once. What's my goal for Q1 and when would a launch window fit in? And to me, like a launch window is probably a 2-week period with some work before that, like up to 6 weeks. And I try to do that for each quarter. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't move the dates or whatever, but at least I'm like taking our business goals and fitting them around our personal goals instead of being like, oh, Sally's launching in March. I think I should launch in March too. No, we're going to be on spring break during that time. So let's do it in February or let's do it in April. And so you can sort of just like weave it in a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, I think, as you divine design your offer suite and that becomes clearer, or even when you add things to it, and Holly teaches an income stacking model that, no joke, I learned 5 years ago, and like the light bulb went off this year. I'm like, oh, that's how we do that. But you start to see, maybe I have some offers that I don't ever talk about, or I have some offers that actually, when I do talk about them, do really well, but I don't talk about them enough. So maybe I need to do a bigger launch around them.
Mhm.
And it kind of turns some light bulbs on around those things and just gives you something to anchor to, because a launch doesn't have to be a new thing, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it could be email only. It could be, I know I want to do something, but I don't want to put a lot of effort into it. So I'm just going to send 5 emails in a row about this one thing. Or it could be this really big thing and like brand new. But when you look at your calendar first, you see how much time you have. And then you
Hmm.
can align the offer with the time and then the goal of like, okay, well, what's my revenue goal? Does this make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So as you talk about life first businesses, and I know you are a planner extraordinaire and figuring all of this out, there are seasons that I'm sure you realize, like, I am at capacity
Yeah.
and maybe I need some support. So I know that in different seasons of your business, you've had different levels of support. So I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about your decision making when you know it is time to bring in some done for you support.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I will say that I actually love outsourcing and I don't think everyone has that gene. Like I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this. I do believe that you should do everything yourself first because you never know what might happen with your team or so and even if you hire somebody to do something, I do feel like you should have a good understanding of what they did. So I do sort of live by that rule. But a lot of times I think in business, you get to a point where your calendar can only hold so much. And I'll use, one on ones as an example, or like Ruthie, you can only take on so many clients personally. So once you hit that capacity, you have a question of do I want to welcome more clients? Do I want to do more? Am I okay with my calendar? Or do I want it to look different? And so the question that I ask myself is like, what do I want my ideal schedule to look like? For me, it's like 10 to 2 ish. Like if I could do that, like 20 to 25 hours a week, that feels great. But I have like really big business goals. So it's like, okay, are there things on my plate that I don't have to do? And my favorite activity, and it's so simple and it is in every like time management book, is to just do a simple time audit. Like Monday through Friday, even Saturday or Sunday if you do work in your business, write down every single thing that you do. And I bet 90% of what you do, somebody else could. Now, it doesn't mean
Mhm.
that you have to outsource it. But I usually will do that like once a quarter and then I'll look at the list and be like, okay, I'm spending way too much time answering emails, or I'm spending way too much time doing SEO, or I'm spending way too much time pitching podcasts. And then I'll say, okay, well, are these revenue generating activities? Like maybe I just put it on pause. So, like, one of our antisocial strategies is actually YouTube because it's video and you can schedule it. And I had a client who was doing it, but it wasn't bringing in the results that we thought. And so we're like, okay, let's pause it. You don't have to do it because you always have done it. And then let's like do something else. And so I think when you think about outsourcing, like, can you let it go? Or like, how great would it feel to have something like taken off your plate? My second recommendation is when you're ready to outsource or you think you're ready, give them a project first. So you don't have to hire somebody for an entire year up front, right? Like maybe you're launching something and you want somebody to like write your copy, like give them a project for a month or 2 and then see how it works. And I think that like takes the pressure off probably both parties and I think it just makes for a better relationship long term.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like you said, identifying your capacity and figuring out what are some things that I don't want to do, I don't need to do. But then I think also it's important to identify the level of support that you're looking for. Like, are
Mhm.
you looking for just a doer, or are
Mhm.
you looking for a partner who's going to support you with decision making
Yeah.
and strategy? And those are kind of two different levels that I think when people first start to outsource and hire after maybe the course and the coach phase is a little bit tricky, right?
Yeah, I think having a really good scope of like this is what I think I want you to do, but also these are your responsibilities. Like I have some
Hmm.
people on my team and like they're not really a give me feedback kind of role in like the best way possible. I'm like, here's the 7 things I need you to do this month. Like they're just like behind the scenes, get them done. Where I have other
Hmm.
people on my team where I'm like, I want your feedback and I want you to
Hmm.
tell me, is this good? Is this bad? But if you go into hiring somebody without a full scope of what your expectations are, it's going to be really
Hmm.
hard for them to meet them.
Yeah. Is that when, and as a coach and an educator with, courses and group coaching and one-on-one coaching even that you do, is that something that you see in your clients where they're like, okay, I see all the things that you're telling me I should do, but like, I can't get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question. So, most of the time, yes. And I would say I do think one of my superpowers is keeping you focused. So, but it kind of goes back to like my experience in corporate. And that is if you look at like a scope triangle, which is like project management one on one, it's like time, energy, and budget. So, time, yes, you could do all these things and it could take you a year to do them and that might be fine. Or the list stays the same, but only one of them moves. So then maybe you hire somebody to do it and it gets done faster, same outcome. Or maybe we just cut the scope and then you don't do it. And so that's always, I think, a really good conversation to have is like, yes, you can do all the things, but you can't do them all at once. So are you okay with a timeline? If you're not, okay, then like what's the lever that we pull? Do you want to hire somebody short term or long term, or is it that important? Like, can you take something off your plate? And so I really go back to like the textbook of like, there's 3 categories here. And if you want to shorten the timeline or you want to get done faster, then you have to figure out the right people to get you there.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think maybe like boils my blood when I scroll and see the magic bullets that are being sold to you is that like yes, every single strategy can work and every single one takes time and or money.
Yes. Yes.
And like that's the
100%.
bottom line. And so we have to decide where are we the resources of time, money, and energy because there
Yeah.
might be some things that energetically, you love to sit down and calendar plan. Other people are like, "Oh my god, that makes my skin crawl." Like I
Yeah.
don't want to do that. Or writing a funnel or whatever it may be. And so figuring out am I doing in my business what is in my zone of genius and what lights
Yeah.
me up? And if it doesn't, is there somebody who can do it for me?
Yeah, and I think you do get to a point where you're like, I know 100% that editing this podcast would just be like nails on a chalkboard. Like, yes, I can do it. I have done it. But is that the best use of my time? No. So, can I have somebody do it and that allows me to do other things? Yes. But I wouldn't have known that unless I would have like one done it myself and understood is this my like work that I want to do and two, like how much time is it taking me and is it worth me outsourcing so that it frees me up to do something else?
Yeah, for sure. Well, everything that we have talked through today, antisocial school, calendar and launch planning, and even delegating, these
Yeah.
are all principles that I bring to my clients because they're things that I learned from Holly. And I would love you to share with our listeners if they're interested in learning more from you, connecting with you. Where do you hang out on the internet and where can they learn more about all of your strategy?
Yeah. So the best place to go to learn our antisocial method is just hollymariehaynes.com/workshop. And I teach you the best method for your business. So it really leans into that like life first strategy of like what feels good to you, what do you like, what do you don't like. And so that would be the best place to start because you'll actually walk away with the framework that you can implement. And then you can find me on the Crush the Rush podcast. Ruthie's been on a few times and we have multiple episodes a week and we talk about all these things all the time.
Yes, yes. Holly always has not I mean, not just me, but she always has great guests that I have learned so much from and connected with. So she's got a great network. So check out her podcast. In terms of antisocial school, this is my kind of last question is you used to teach it live, but you've
Yeah.
pivoted it to an evergreen course. Can you share a little bit about that evolution?
Yes. So I truthfully have taught it. Well, I still teach it live. It's just you can join anytime. So when you join Antisocial School, there is a live component, which I actually think is very important in any program because the business world is changing so fast. But when I was sort of teaching it live and it wasn't Evergreen, I could only offer it twice a year, and it was behind a big launch. And from a like just life perspective, I was like, how great would it be if I didn't have to launch this all the time? And when I was having conversations on podcasts and different places, people could just jump in anytime and still get
Mhm.
the live experience. And so we redid the entire thing, which was big, and we've combined it with our Crush the Rush community. So you get me, you get our framework, and you can join anytime. So it was kind of a mix of like leveling up the program, but also I wanted it to fit like our lifestyle a little bit more. I also think it's a really good program. I mean, I would hope anyone that designed something and sold it would say that, but I think it's like very life changing because it's just a different way of thinking about business. And I sort of felt like I was holding myself back and I was holding my clients back if you could only join twice a year.
Yeah. And because you were able to teach it live, several rounds of it, you
Eight
were able
times.
to yeah, you taught it live 8 times, and then you were able to really take the best of the best and create it in a different container,
Yeah.
which allows you to sell differently, launch differently, market
Mhm.
differently, and it's gonna impact your planning for this year, I would imagine.
Yeah, and the fun part is, like, we'll still launch it live and we'll, like, add bonuses and things, so if you're in Antisocial School, you get all of those bonuses, and so sometimes we'll have like, we just did a holiday sales lab at wrapping up at the end of last year, and, like, we'll do, like, a 2-week workshop, and so it's sort of made it into this, like, really fun community that before only existed for 6 weeks, and now it exists for a longer time, which is
Yeah,
cool.
I love that. Well, Holly, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here. If
thank you
you
so much.
are interested in learning more about Holly, like she said, check out the Crush the Rush podcast. If you're interested in some more done for you or partnership around marketing, you can always connect with me at the Consistency Corner, and we'll see you in the next episode.